Hello, hello, hello. My name is Terrence Crystal, and welcome to another episode of the Triple Threat Podcast, where we talk about all things in the arts. And yes, it is a brand new episode. How are you guys doing? I am great. We are in April now. We're halfway through April. And we were able to go through all of March, which seemed to be like a plethora of new and not just new, but new and exciting content was released in March. Now, this month we have Taylor Swift's album coming out in a couple of days, which I am so fucking excited for. As you may not know, I am a very big Taylor Swift fan. And I'm going to see her in June at the Eras Tour, which I'm so excited about. And I'm so curious to see what she does with this album after the Eras Tour, or if she will incorporate it somehow into the Eras Tour. Like, as far as I can see, like maybe she'll just have one new section where it's just like one song from the Tortured Poets department, which that would be really cool. I would love that. But I'm really interested to see how she does it. Also, Beyonce might be touring this summer, which I don't think she's going to tour this summer. I think it's way too soon after Cowboy Carter. I think it's going to be probably either next summer, like she did with Renaissance. And yeah. So this episode, I'm going to talk about three different things that I've seen. We're going to talk about Bluey, because Bluey just released a 30-minute episode called The Sign, which is so good. We're going to talk about Bluey. We're going to talk about X-Men 97, and we're going to talk about the second full season of Invincible, which I mentioned last time. I've finished it now. And yeah, we're going to talk about it. First up, just life in general. Yeah, I mean, it's fine. I'm doing good. I've been reading my books. I've been stretching. The sun is now setting at 8:30 p.m. instead of 5 p.m., which I love. Thank fucking God, because I wasn't dealing well with these nights that were starting at 5 or 4 p.m. Christ. Jesus, I can't believe that was. Oh, I can't believe time. I cannot believe that time is a thing and sunsets are congruent with the time. Oh God, so stupid. But yes, first up. Now, I believe I've talked about Bluey before, but honestly, I don't know, and if I repeat myself, it's okay. No, I have talked about Bluey before. So Bluey is an Australian TV show designed for kids, but it's amassed an audience of not just kids, but also parents and also just adults in general. Like, it seems to be really hitting hard home with people between the ages of like 22 to 30. Yeah, because not only, well, I can attest to that, because it's not only a great TV show, it's very poignant. It's more than just a children's TV show. It's very poignant in its themes. It trusts its audience. It doesn't talk down to the audience. Because it's a kid's show, it's very well made. It is very Australian, which I love. It's just unabashedly Australian, and I love that. And it's very charming. It's one of the most charming TV shows I've ever watched. Like, and it's one of those TV shows where, I think I've said this before, you can watch it as like background noise and just put it on. But then if you want to watch it and be focused on it, you can also do that. And it's like there's over 150 episodes, and each episode is 7 minutes long. So it's great. I fucking love it. But they've recently released a special episode called The Sign. And this is the longest episode they've ever done. It's 28 minutes altogether, which is wild compared to like what they usually do, which is 7 minutes. So this is a whole new ball game for them. And I think it's really to test the waters. Excuse me. It's really to test the waters of like the potentialness of doing a full length feature film with Bluey. It's to test that, and it's also to test if they want to do longer format. Like, because obviously, it's a testament to the series that they're able to portray and get through so much in just 7 minutes. But I think the creator has also said he would love to get into longer form content. And yeah, I think this newest episode proves that it can be achieved, and it can be achieved with fantastic results. So the new episode is called A Sign. And for for people who are not in the lore of Bluey, well, it's interesting. So it's The Sign, and we start with the family having to leave the house because some other dogs. Oh, also, it's animated dogs. It's animated dogs, and I love that. I love animated dogs. They're so much fun. It's animated dogs, and they have to leave the house because they're selling the house, and the real estate agent is there showing potential buyers. And obviously, this is very sad for Bluey, but Bingo is none the wiser. And they're like, it's okay, we've talked about this. We're going to get a new job. We're going to get a new life. We're going to get a lot more money because of this job. So it's going to be a good thing for us. And yeah, that happens, and then they leave, and it's just all, it's really interesting because the whole theme of this episode is these choices we make in our life, we don't know if it'll have a good or bad impact on us. We'll just have to wait and see. And it's like, because the common trope is to like really do the things because even if it's good or bad, you should just do it because life is short. But I like how in this episode they also are like, you know what, even if you don't do it, that could be good too. There's no like right or wrong. It's really interesting how they do it. Like so throughout the series, throughout this episode, you see like little things influence each other. Like so there's a bit where the wife runs off because she gets a bit of nervous about the wedding because she doesn't want to. Because after the wedding, the husband wants to move, so she gets a bit of cold feet and runs off. And then they have a couple of like instances that like are domino effect of each other, like for example, like when they find the wife, they have a coin that they found and they try to use it in the telescope at the park, but it doesn't really work, so they just leave it. But then the people who are going to buy the house are at the park and they see the telescope and they use it because the coin is stuck in there, so they use it and they find another house that they actually like better, so they end up not buying the house. So they go through the motion of like moving out of the house, everything, and then these buyers pull out last minute, so they take that as a sign to not, sell the house. And at the end, they don't sell the house, which is really sweet, and they have a great big moment. And yeah, it's like even because in a classic, it would be such a classic thing to just be like, oh, it's stupid. They should have just gone because like the dad would have gotten more money, and like they would have, um, it is sad moving, but it's they should have done it. They shouldn't have changed their minds. Which yes, you can see pros to that, but it's also a lot. Like these kids, like moving is a lot for a kid. Like moving changes everything. It changes your whole worldview. Like I moved from America to Ireland, and at that point I had my friends in America, and I got used and accustomed to the way America works. Well, I mean, not totally. I mean, I was 7 years old, 7 or 6, but to completely move from America to Ireland is such a culture switch. And I imagine everyone who's moved when they were younger kids will be able to relate to that. It's not traumatic, but it's like it forces you to adapt, especially if you're a person who's moved multiple times. Like even moving house, like we moved house in Kilkenny. We were still like in the town, but we moved house 3 times, which is fine. You're in the same thing, but imagine moving across country. Like you have to be able to adapt, or else you'll just be like almost left behind. So I think it's very, and especially for me moving from Ireland to London, you also have to adapt. So, but imagine having that as a kid. So yeah, it's very interesting how they do it. So when they change their minds and decide not to leave, you don't feel it's contrived. You feel it's an earned thing. Like, yes, they've thought about it. They've seen the like even when the husband and wife in the wedding, they were going to move, but then they decide not to. That Bluey's dad is just like, well, aren't you not worried about the job? And Bluey's brother, who's getting married, just goes, well, I'll just get a new one. Which is like, it's like, I'll just get a new one. I'm happy that I'm staying. Sorry. Have a bit of a cough. I'm happy that I'm staying. And yeah, I think, and it's a great thing to kind of show kids that, it also affects the parents. Like, it's very affecting on the parents as well as the children, this whole move thing. And you especially see that in Chile, because Chile, like, she grew up in this, well, not grew up. Her kids grew up in this house. So it's very hard for her to move here when this home has attached so many memories for her. And yeah, it's a great, I was a bit worried when they were like longer form content for this show, because at the end of the day, Bluey is a children's show for like preschool, like, well, not preschool, it's for like children. So I was like, 28 minutes, that's a long, like, because obviously famously children, well, they don't have the longest of attention spans, but I think this shows that if you trust your audience, you can achieve great things. Because there was never a moment in this show where I was just like, oh, for fuck's sake, like, we're just dragging, like, and oh, we're doing this now. Oh, and like, honestly, I wanted the episode to be longer. I wanted it to be so much longer. I was like, oh, I want more. Like, because the way they end it was perfect. And it almost feels like a finale of sorts. Like, you've had 150 episodes, like, all of this leading up to this. It did almost feel like it's not a finale of any sorts. It's actually, like, kind of confirmed that the creators that they want to keep going and they want to keep making Bluey. But it does have that kind of finality feel to it, which I really love. It kind of unintentionally wraps everything in a nice little bow and finishes it. Yeah. And I would watch it again and again and again. I've watched it 3 times now, and I've just loved it. I think it never bored me, and it was really funny. It kept the spirit of the past 2 seasons, and yeah, I thought it was very well directed, well written, and yeah, I'm so excited to see what the future will hold for this TV show. I will still watch it. Yes, I'm 27 years old, and I will still watch Bluey the cartoon show because I like this shit, and I don't want to have to hide it. Yeah, I like an Australian animated dog. So, what are you gonna say? No, I love this. I think people should watch it just for the charm itself, and it's also quite emotionally impactful because what the show does, it really teaches the parents, not just being about parents and all that stuff, but just being an adult in life, which I really like. Because there's a bit where, like, in the older seasons, where like the dog just turns to the screen and she's talking to Chili, but like the POV is her looking at you. And she just goes, and I've just got one thing to say. You're doing great. And obviously in the context of the show, it's to Chili being a good mom. But you see that dog say that to you, and you're just like, oh my God, okay. And this is for 7-year-olds? Yeah. Bluey, love Bluey. Watch The Sign. It's on Disney Plus if you have Disney Plus. And Jesus, they've just announced today that they're looking to make actual live channels in Disney Plus that would be running their shows and content. And I'm just like, Jesus fucking Christ, we're heading back to cable. How the hell have we ended up going through basically the streaming wars with all of these different streaming platforms fighting for who is top notch? And in fairness, Netflix did kind of win. Well, it's debatable, but I think ultimately Netflix did win. But now we're kind of like this Aurora Borealis, the snake eating its own tail, going back on each other, because all of these things, like now obviously for the UK, at Disney Plus, we've always had a Star, or Star was introduced like a year ago or a year and a half ago, I think. But so we always had the adult content on Disney Plus. But in America, they've just combined Hulu and Disney Plus. So now they get it, and Hulu is equivalent to Star here. But I swear, it's just going to be, they're all just going to merge together, and it's going to become cable TV again. And then we're going to go in a vicious cycle. And like, because at the moment, I think to watch, obviously, to watch anything legally, wink, wink, you have to have at least Disney Plus, Netflix, and Amazon Prime. To watch anything at least mainstream that is popular in the mainstream, you would have to have at least those 3 streaming services. And there's no debating it. Like, it's just so fucking annoying. I hate it so much. But anyway, Bluey is on Disney Plus, and The Sign, 30-minute episode. Give it a watch. I couldn't recommend it enough. I loved it. I would give it a 10 out of 10 or a 9. No, I'd give it a 10 out of 10. Absolutely. Just that episode. Yes, so that's Bluey. Now we're going to move on to something a bit different to Bluey. A bit in the different genre. a different genre. We are going to talk about X-Men 97. Now, X-Men 97 is a Marvel superhero animated TV show. It's also on Disney Plus. It is how do I describe it? So basically it is a sequel series to the X-Men animated series that was released in 1992 and ended in 1997. It's a continuation of it. And it has all the characters like Wolverine, Cyclops, Jean Grey, Rogue. Rouge? Rogue? Rouge? Rouge? Rogue? Rouge? Rogue? Rouge. No. Rouge? Rogue. How the fuck? Rouge or Rogue? Rogue. I think it's Rogue. It's Rogue. Whatever. It's Rogue. Ha! Anyway. So this they had 2 episodes come out, and from the get-go, this series has been top notch. Like, really, it pays homage to the original series, which is like, campy and fun, but also has its serious moments. It pays homage to that campiness, but it ups the stakes. It ups the animation quality, and it came out of the park swinging. Like, the first 2 episodes were banger after banger, especially the second episode. So basically, in the TV series, Charles Xavier, who is the leader of the X-Men, is dead, and Magneto is actually in Charles's will. Magneto is announced as the next of kin, for lack of a better term, for Charles Xavier, his protege, if you would. And obviously this is crazy because Magneto has famously gone against the X-Men, because, they're both fighting for the same thing, but Charles Xavier is on a more of a path of, like, going through it peacefully, and Magneto kind of wanted to go against it quite violently. But both wanted the same goals. And Magneto is now head of the X-Men because Charles thought that it would teach Magneto how to go about in the world and how to make change for mutants in the world. If he were to lead the X-Men, he would have to change himself and his ways of doing. It's absolutely incredible, and it gives the right amount of time for each character. Like, obviously, Cyclops and Jean Grey are the unofficial leaders of the X-Men. Well, now Magneto is, but they were before, after Charles Xavier died. But every character is given its own nice amount of time on screen. Like, there's no, like, main protagonist or antagonist like in the old X-Men films, where obviously Wolverine is, like, the main character we look at. It's kind of all equally spread out, which I really like, with certain episodes focusing on certain aspects. Like, in episode 3, it really focuses on Jean Grey and Cyclops, because you find out that Jean Grey is a clone and that Sinister wanted the baby to make him his own evil minion. And so you see Madeline, who's the clone, turns evil and tries to get the baby to Sinister, but then realizes the errors of their way, and then team up with Cyclops. What's his name? Scott? Yeah, Scott. and defeat Sinister, but the baby's already been poisoned by Sinister, so they have to give up their baby. And so that episode really focuses on them, but also it like gives insight into other characters. Like there's a scene where Sinister kind of takes over the haunted house, and you see each one of the X-Men's like biggest fears or something like that, and it's really interesting. That's good. The only kind of like episode that's been a bit of a downer, well, not a downer, but like it wasn't as good as the other episodes that have been coming out. It was episode 4, and it was about Jubilee, and she gets transported into this game world, and she meets her older self, and they have to destroy this gaming monster that's like going after them. But it's also like Jubilee learning to like move on and to stop being like immature, and to trying to improve her powers instead of just being content with what they are. It's interesting. I liked it. I thought it was fun. I thought it was engaging, but comparatively it's not as good as the other ones. But then, holy God. So, sorry, I'm buckling myself in. So, if some of you are already watchers of X-Men 97, you'll know when I say that episode 5 is where X-Men 97 goes from being just a standard good animated superhero TV show to just one of the best TV series or pieces of media ever. I'm not even joking. The way episode 5 just cranks everything up to 150. So in this episode, after talks and after an attack on the embassy or the UN or however they represent it in that TV series, they agree to to allow this country called Genisha, which will be a homeland for, which will be its own country, but specifically the population will be of mutants, so that they don't have to hide and they don't have to like be ashamed of themselves, or they don't have to run away. They can live freely in this country. So Magneto, is it Madeline? Is it Madeline or Jean? Who goes? Sorry, I'm just gonna look at this up. Who the fuck goes to Okay, here we go. Remember it. Life, death. Holy shit. Sorry. I just saw the titles for all the episode, and the last 3 episodes is called Tolerance is Extinction. Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay. That's a fucking lot. Grown distant. Magneto, Rouge, and Gambit. Oh, yeah. Wait, what? Magneto, Rouge, and Gambit. Son of Madeline, Cable, blah, 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 blah. Wait, Oh, here we go. Okay, so Magneto, Rouge, and Gambit, they head to the country to just see how it's going and see what's going on. And one of them is just like, well, you know, we need a king or a queen or just a leader here. We can't just have, and they're like, Magneto, would you want to do it? And he's just like, yeah, I'll do it, but I need a queen or whatever. And Magneto and Rouge have this like weird romance thing, which gets explored more, and it's really interesting because like all I know from the X-Men is like it's the same thing with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I'm not a big comic book reader. Like the only comic books I've read have been what comic books have I read? I've read some of the Transformers comic books, and I've read some of just the Transformer one. So my knowledge of comic book heroes comes from these TV shows and the movies, like the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the X-Men movies. So obviously I watched all of the X-Men films from the 2000s, and it's not really touched upon that Magneto and Rouge have a relationship or have a sexual relationship. So it was really interesting seeing how this happens and how it came about. So then that, and then you have Gambit and Rouge who like have a thing for each other, but they never really acted upon it because Rouge can't touch people because then she absorbs their powers and kills them. So it's very interesting. You see this like not love triangle, but like this almost decision making thing of who Rouge is going to be with. And you think it's going to be Magneto, and because Rouge and Gambit have this whole chat, and they're like, listen, Rouge is just like, listen, I want to be with Magneto because he can actually touch me, because in some way the electromagnetic field that Magneto has on his hands can repel Rouge's superpower, which is to drain the life force. So it's just really interesting. What was I saying? Oh, so obviously they can touch each other, skin-to-skin contact, which Rouge has never really experienced in her life because she's never been able to touch anyone. So she's like, I'm going to go with Magneto, but not just because I can touch him, but because he's actually a really good guy and we already have a really good and built relationship. And Gambit is just like, there are some things that are deeper than skin. I think it's your decision. We will be friends out of this, but just I need some time. We'll still be friends. And I really respected that. I really because the common trope is like after that, it's him to just be angry at her and just be like, blah, 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 and then all of a sudden something happens to her and then he regrets and then blah, 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 blah. So I liked how they actually took a realistic approach. He was just like, I love you. We're still going to be friends, but it's going to take time to get through this. Oh, and also, it's really interesting because Wolverine is not sidelined in this series, but he's not the main focus. But he and Jean Grey have this weird kind of relationship thing because they both really like each other. And there's one bit because Jean Grey, the real Jean Grey, can't remember her memories because the clone took them all. So she's trying to regain them. And then there's a moment where both of them kiss. And it's both initiated. Like, well, Jean kind of initiates it, and then Logan does kiss back, and then Logan just goes, that was a mistake. Let's move on from this. We both know that was a mistake. We shouldn't have done that. And it's just like, God damn! Because usually, like I said before, the trope is that they kiss and then they're like, oh, let's just not tell anyone. This isn't a good thing, I don't know if I love you, and it goes into all this confusion. No, Logan shoots that shit down right away. He's just like, nope, that was a mistake. That was bad. We shouldn't have done that. That's the end of it. We're not doing this again. Goodbye. Well, not goodbye, but like, that's it. And I love that. But let's get back to the thing. So they're on the island, and Rouge is dancing with Magneto, and you think that, oh, they're going to be king and queen of the thing, blah, 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 blah. But then at the very end, Rouge is like, I'm sorry, sugar, but some things are deeper than skin. So you're like, oh, shit. And then all of a sudden, poof, explosions. There's a giant, like, Titan-like being attacking this city. And it's causing destruction. It's killing people. And they do not hold back. They are visceral in, like, the destruction. And this is, like, a next level kind of, like, Titan thing or whatever they're called. it's harder than the average thing. So you see them all go to battle, and they're like fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting, and you see these mutants get killed and this place get destroyed. It's harrowing. Oh my god! And they're all fighting and fighting, and then it gets to where Magneto comes in, and he's trying to save them, and especially these young mutants, and you get like little flashes of Magneto's life, because Magneto was a child of the Holocaust, and that's how he discovered his powers, because his parents were taken away and were killed, and that activated his magnetic powers. So you see a quick glimpse of that. And then he says to one of the mutants in German, "Be not afraid, my child," because he's being blasted, and all of a sudden, poof, it destroys Magneto, and it's like target defeated and whatever. And then Rouge goes on a rampage, and Gambit stops her from like going after it and killing herself. And then you think Gambit's going to destroy it, and then this thing stabs Gambit in the side, and Gambit's just like, you need, don't worry, you'll remember me, or remember my name, and destroys it because of his magic. And then the very last thing you see is just Gambit lying, like a corpse of Gambit, burnt up, and Rouge with just lying there crying, and she ends it with, crying, saying, "I can't feel you." And oh my god, it's just this silly little cartoon packed so much emotional gravitas in one 35-minute episode. You didn't almost expect it. And the way the tone shift halfway through the episode, it was wild. It was truly wild. I have never had my jaw drop that much. And obviously, I don't know how they're going to get the superheroes back, because even though in Infinity War, when Thanos snapped his fingers and you see half the superheroes die, and you're like, oh my god, but part of you is like, they're not really dead, because for a fact that the actors are booked in for a couple of more sequels down the line. So, they're not really dead. They're going to come back, but you're interested to see how they come back. This one, I don't know how they're going to bring them back. I know they will, but watching this, it gave you that same horrible feeling of when someone dies, it's like, oh my god, that's it, they're gone. The stakes in this episode were enough that when a character died, I was like, holy shit, they're gone. Oh my god. Yeah. X-Men 97, brilliant. It's so good. I'm so excited to see the next episode. And there's been a lot of debate about the binging of TV shows and then weekly episode series. I think there was a time where the binging of one series was good and positive, and it worked, and if your show was really good, it would still be remembered and all that stuff. But I think we're at a point where unfortunately, a series will be released all at once. It'll be talked about for a week, and then it'll just kind of die a death unless it's that good. So I think we're slowly getting back into the single episode released, because last week I just saw nothing but tweet after tweet after tweet for the whole full week, actually, about episode 5 of X-Men 47. Episode 47, Jesus Christ. X-Men 97. So yeah, I think with the way it's going, with having a 2-episode premiere and then weekly after that, I think that's a good way to do it. I don't know, but I think like so many TV series are now adapting to that. Like last year or 2 years ago. Oh my God, it was 2 years ago. So 2 years ago, when Stranger Things came out, obviously in the past, Stranger Things would have released one full season, and like, you know, everyone loves Stranger Things. But I think they realized that the binge format was not working, or it wasn't, it was kind of dying a death. So they kind of went back to not the full waiting for an episode. What they did was they released 4 episodes called X-Men Season 4 Part 1. So already the thing. And then 2 months later, I think Part 2 came out, which was 2 episodes. So I think a lot of TV shows on streaming services are now doing that. They're now doing Part 1 and Part 2, which is really interesting because obviously Harry Potter was the first to split up a film into Part 1 and Part 2. And then subsequently you had a bunch of other films, specifically young adult novels, going like, okay, we're doing Part 1 now, Part 2. And then that kind of died a death because it wasn't really working because, well, the main reason for it was because, and I think The Hunger Games is a good example of this, because they film Part 1 and Part 2 at the same time, or like in succession of each other. They don't film Part 1, release it, then they go film Part 2 and then release it. They film everything all at once. And so I think what happened with especially The Hunger Games and Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1 and Part 2, I think that Part 1 wasn't really well received. I liked it. I thought it was very good. But a lot of the public didn't really like it. And so subsequently, since they weren't able to take the notes or to take the reviews of the Part 1, they had to release Part 2, and it was a bit better, but still faced the same critiques. So I think that kind of died a death. But now it's coming back in TV shows. And I think it works better with TV shows because you could still binge 4 to 5 episodes of a season, but still have that waiting period of waiting for the next part of the season. I think it works more for TV. So I think the Part 1 and Part 2 would work, and I think we're slowly getting back into weekly episode releases. Yeah. Yeah, I think we're slowly getting back into that. Yeah, X-Men 97, 10 out of 10. Well, actually, no. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10 because that one episode with Jubilee wasn't great. Well, it was good, but just comparatively to the rest of the series, not as good. Yes, so 97. And now, for the final bit of the podcast, we're going to talk about Invincible Season 2. It's finished. It's done. They had, 8 episodes. And I've seen a lot of people complain that, because, in the first season of Invincible, you had the overarching story in the show of who killed the Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, the audience, we know who's killed the Guardians of the Galaxy. So our arc watching this TV series is finding out why Omni-Man killed the Guardians of the Galaxy, which is a very strong narrative arc to have through the series. And you had little tangents going on and off, like Mark dealing with a different villain every week, blah, 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 blah. And it was really good. Season 1 really good. And you see the devastation of that Omni-Man does to Mark and Debbie, the mother, at during the last 2 episodes, and it's really horrible and all that stuff. And yeah, what I love about season 2 is that they really take this season is basically how do we recover from what Nolan, Omni-Man, did to us as a family, did to this city, and did to this planet. How do you go back to real life after this? That's the majority of what this season. That's the arc of this season. Now I've seen some people complain that there's not really an arc thing. It's just kind of Mark going on different adventures, and if you want to say there's an arc, it's them trying to prepare for the Viltrumite, but they're failing fucking miserably at it. And yes, they are, because they're still dealing with the fallout of what Omni-Man did. So I'll just focus on one character for the next couple of minutes. So Mark, it's really interesting seeing him try so hard not to be his father, which is understandable, and also seeing him try and reintegrate into the normal world with college and all that stuff. But it's hard, because how do you deal with that? How, knowing what your father did and that you yourself are a superhero with the same kind of superpowers as your father, and everyone being afraid of you because you are his kid and that you might turn out like him, and everyone has this expectation of you. How do you deal with that? So Mark tries to go on different missions. He tries to do this. He tries to just be a normal kid with his girlfriend. But then ultimately it leads to him meeting his father in space. So Nolan is now in another planet, and so I like how they don't really sympathize with him. You're still like, holy shit, that's Omni-Man, and he did these horrible things. They're like, here's Nolan, here's what he's doing. This is what happened after he left planet Earth, and then this is what he's doing now. Do that what you will. They kind of they trust you enough as an audience to be like, do you think you can be like Mark and be like, absolutely no, you're an asshole, you're a fucking dick, and you've ruined this family, you don't deserve this. And yeah, it doesn't make Nolan the good guy, but it's just he has a son now, he has a family, and in a way, it makes him does look a bit better, because the Viltrumites, how emotionally unattached they are, that the fact that he now has a wife and kid on another planet and has abandoned his post, that shows that he is truly breaking free of the Viltrumite brainwashing in a way. And you see Mark deal with this, and it's wait a minute, what the because it's so easy for Mark and Debbie to have Nolan as the bad guy, because they can just put all of his anger on him. But Nolan's actually okay. He's doing well. He's this. So how do we process this? Who can we blame? And Nolan has a son now, a new son with an alien. So Nolan's just I need you to protect him, because I can't do it by myself with the Viltrumites at me. I need your help. And then ultimately Mark brings his brother back, and they're I thought that it would go down the path of Debbie kind of resenting this baby and like being really like, I don't want to fuck with this baby. I hate this baby. Get this baby away from me. It reminds me too much of Nolan. But it doesn't do that. And it actually shows, I love how it takes the time for almost all the characters to breathe, and especially Debbie, because at the end of season 1, Nolan calls Debbie a pet. His wife of 20 plus years, he calls her a pet. So she is just devastated throughout this thing. She's so depressed. Like, no, everyone thinks that she's an asshole because she didn't know that Nolan was the bad guy and that she was in on it. And it's just like, no, that's not true. She just truly didn't know. So she's dealing with it a lot. And then it's such complicated feelings to have. So I'm glad that when Mark brings over his brother, I love that she is a bit hesitant at the start, but inevitably just embraces the baby because, you know, like, it's not fair to attach this old idea of what Nolan was to this baby, this resentment against Nolan. Nolan should be the one who has the resentment against Nolan because he was the one who committed those acts. And yeah, it's just so... It's this season, they let their characters breathe, which I really appreciated. Like, because usually in these superhero TV shows, they would just throw them into the next thing, and then Nolan would be back in episode 2, and then this, that. This whole season felt like they could breathe. They could try to get back to real life, but it's just... It's hard. And fuck, what's the guy's name? Invincible. Oh my god, I can't remember his fucking name. Invincible. Well, Mark. Okay. So Mark is very much of the ideal that he will never kill anyone. He will never kill anyone. He will always try to, like, keep going and, you know, like, all that stuff. And he doesn't want to become his father. But it comes to a point where this villain, this really cool villain, and, like, I said this to my friend, it's really interesting how the last episode of Invincible was able to be more fun and show the multiverse in full action than the MCU has in the past 3 years, which is really interesting. But anyway, this really, like, you don't see much of him during the show, but when he's there, he does make an impactful, like, thing on you. This villain, voiced by Sterling K. Brown, who I love, he's like this multiversal portal creator, and they go through a whole battle where they fight, and he throws him to different dimensions. And he's a real threat. He's crazy. He's wild. He's like, he thinks he's trying to save the world by killing Mark and making sure that all the other universes know it. But like oh my god, he breaks Debbie's arm because Debbie calls out his hypocrisy, being like, you're mad because in this world Mark is the hero and you're the villain. Whereas in all the other universes that you've come from, you're the hero and he's the villain. So you just, it's wild. And you get to this point where Mark sees that his mom's arm is broken, and he just throughout all of season 1 and then almost 90% of season 2, he's been holding back in a sense. More in season 1, he's holding back because he doesn't want to kill people. And then in season 2, he doesn't want to kill people and he doesn't want to become his dad. So he's really holding back. He's not letting go. But then in that final episode where he's pushed to his absolute limit, he lets go. and he just goes full brutal on this guy. And they don't show it in the TV show, but you can see it in the comics. He is like beaten to a pulp. He is like beaten where all you see is teeth. It's disgusting and wild. But you see the effect that this has on Mark. Mark is like, "Oh my God, what the you told me you were stronger. You told me you were stronger. This is your fault. You said you were stronger. Why did you say you were stronger?" And you see him deal with it, and the end of the last episode is Mark's realization, because the Viltrumites will kill you with the flick of a wrist. They do not care. They are so powerful that they can do it with the flick of their wrist. So the end of season 2, I think, is Mark realizing that he has to, in a way, become his father to protect the world he loves, because the Viltrumites will not give up. The Viltrumites will not stop. They almost killed his girlfriend, and he can't just keep holding back. If he holds back, then he will lose. He will lose. So he has to... Now, maybe I don't want to say become his father. Maybe I want to say he needs to reach his full potential, and that full potential would involve killing people to protect his planet. And he was scared to do it because he didn't want to become crazy like his father. But he has to do it. He has to find his own way to be it. Yeah. I love this season. I think it really shows, you can have the action and the deaths and all of that jazz and splendor and multiverse travel, but the script, the dialogue, and the voice acting are foundational and are so moving and compelling that it speaks volumes for this show, that this is not just an average superhero animated film. This is so much more. And I, for one, am so excited for season 3. I really hope we get it. I feel like we'll get it at the end of this year because I feel like they don't want to make us wait. Yeah, I loved it. I think it's brilliant. 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10 out of 10 out of 10. It was just amazing. Yeah, so that's me. This has been another episode of the Triple Threat Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. I am available on Apple Podcast. I'm available on Spotify. I'm available on Amazon Podcast. And I'm also available on YouTube, which I will post this full video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I shall see you next week. Bye-bye!